So when I chose this rabbit, I noticed that it had a distended abdominal cavity, and that's a clear indicator of having bloat, and bloat is extremely painful and potentially fatal. You can see all of the air in the intestines, and that can eventually burst, which then kills the rabbit. So this particular rabbit was already to the age and size that it needs to be dispatched for food production. These livestock are raised specifically as meat. And so with this one having the problems very apparent, I decided that this one would be dispatched. This here is the stomach, and the stomach, which is connected to the esophagus, is the food highway. And here I'm looking for the esophagus. That right there is the trachea, and the esophagus was there earlier. So here I am trying to find it, but it's nowhere to be found. So you can see the liver. The liver has lobes. That's the gallbladder, where bile is produced by the liver and sent out into the small intestines to be used during the meal process. But here what I'm doing is I'm finding the end of the stomach, and there's the spleen. So the spleen is for the filtration of the blood. It removes all of the old and damaged red blood cells, and it stores platelets and white blood cells. And here we found the end of the stomach that moves into the small intestines. And the small intestines are where all of the nutrients are absorbed. So most of the digestion happens in the small intestines. And here I'm speeding up the video because what I'm doing is just following the intestines down, all of the small intestines. And we're going to reach the end of this where we're going to meet the small intestines that join into the large intestines at the cecum. And there is the cecum. This is the terminal point, the end of the ileum that connects the small intestines to the large intestines. And this is also called a junction or an orifice. And as we move down the large intestines, it's hard to maintain a visual of where it's going because of the air that's inside. But as you can see, it ends up at the rectum. That's the end point there. We were able to follow the intestines all the way down. And now we're going to be looking for the esophagus. So as the food is chewed and it heads down to the stomach, it moves through the esophagus into the stomach. And what we're doing here is we're just moving the diaphragm out of the way. It does kind of get into the way, as well as the liver. So the liver is attached to a big blood supply, and you're going to see a lot of bleeding at this point. So there is the esophagus that connects to the top of the stomach, and as I move everything kind of out of the way, you're going to see it a little bit better. So we're just going to remove the spleen real quick, get it out of the way. And these are all connective tissues holding everything in place, which is necessary inside the body cavity. And there you can see the esophagus that's moving up through the thoracic cavity into the neck, and we're just going to remove that so that we can access everything else. So you can see that all of the internal organs are connected to the body cavity in order to hold everything in place. And now we need to remove the liver. And you can see all of the parts where the blood enters the liver through all of the veins and arteries, enters through the arteries, exits through the veins. And as we cut that, blood is going to drain out because there is still blood in those arteries. And again, the gallbladder here. And now we have the cavity open, and we're going to be looking at the diaphragm here. And the diaphragm is separated into hemidiaphragms. There is the right dome and the left dome. And as we move the diaphragm muscle out of the way, you're going to see where that dome is connected. So we cut right up the center, and then we remove each side. Now we're just going to remove the entire diaphragm so we can access the thoracic cavity. And now we have access to the lungs. The lungs and the heart are all within this portion of the cavity, so in order to take a closer look, we're going to need to remove all of those. And since they're all connected, we're just going to remove them as one piece. And what that's going to do is that's going to take the trachea, the heart, and the lungs out all as one. So there we have the trachea, and that's the airway. Enters the lungs. And then we have the heart. So here we have the kidneys and the adrenal glands. Right kidney, left kidney, and those are the adrenal glands right there. I'm going to clean them off so you can see them just a little bit better. But those are the adrenal glands. Those are found located cranial to the kidneys and work with the kidneys in certain hormonal processes. So here we have the two kidneys and the ureters, which proceed from the kidney to the bladder and then out the urethra for excretion. Each kidney has its own ureter, which heads to the bladder. And in this one in particular, the bladder is empty, so there's no urine inside the bladder. But the bladder will stretch and expand depending on the liquid that's within it. And those are the uterine horn. This is a female rabbit, so the uterine horn is where all of the kits or the baby rabbits reside after fertilization. And we have the ovary, which goes down to the uterine horn. It is connected, so that one is not connected. I must have snipped it at some point. So that ovary sends all its eggs down into the uterine horn, and rabbits can have anywhere between 1 and 15 kits, but they only have 8 nipples. So it becomes very stressful and hard on the mother rabbit. So this kidney and the ureter, you can see where it's connected, and we're just going to remove that. There's the ureter still connected. And now we have the kidney opened up so you can see inside. The nephron loops are a fascinating part of the kidney. Let's try that off and see it a little bit better. So there we have it dried off so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, so let's look at the heart. The two separate sections of the heart, one pumps from the heart to the lungs and then back into the heart and then pumps out to the body. And there you have it. Those are your organ systems.